a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Porchlight Letters podcast, number 2240, Laughter as Wonder. This is episode 4 for our week of, what are we doing this week? Everyday Wonders. That's what we're doing this week. My apologies for being so late. I fell asleep. I didn't have my alarm on. I'm sorry. But we are here, we are awake, we are energized, and let's get ready to rock and roll. So we are talking about laughter tonight. I love laughter. Oh, I have to say, it rained today. I was sitting here, I was getting ready to go live on a training course where I was running the training, and I looked out, and it was a couple of minutes, but I had a couple of minutes before it started, and I heard this noise, and I went, what's that? And I turned and looked out the window. It was pouring down with rain. It was coming down so hard that I could barely see the house across the street. And I was just like, oh, I need to go dance in the rain. But then I realized, oh, I can't. I'm about to go on camera. Can you imagine me being on camera with wet hair, a shirt that's wet at the same time, trying to teach people things? I was like, yeah, no. And I was thinking, well, I can always go change the shirt. And I'm like, but I really don't have time to do that, because it was literally like 2 to 3 minutes before I went live. And I was like, yeah, I don't even have time to get changed if I get wet. Well, I was going to get wet anyway. So I just danced here in the rain and hoped it would rain again. It hasn't yet, but the wind just came up. I can hear the house creaking with the wind as it was starting to blow. So I'm just like, oh, hope it's bringing more rain, because then I can go outside and dance in the rain. That would be awesome. Anyway, what are we talking about? Laughter as wonder. There is a kind of magic in laughter. It bridges gaps, eases burdens, and reminds us that life is still worth smiling about. Laughter doesn't erase hardship, but it gives us a pause where joy slips through. When we allow ourselves to laugh, really laugh, we're reminded that wonder is not only solemn, but also playful and alive. Oh, I forgot to bring the cats in. Oh, darn. I was going to get you laughing, but that's okay. I have a cat and a dog, and they've got little press me buttons on them. Yeah, and they incite you to laugh. Let's just say that. They encourage you to laugh. What it teaches us is laughter is a form of wonder, opening space for lightness and connection. Shared laughter creates bonds that words alone cannot build. Humor often shows up when we least expect it, breaking tension in the most needed moments. That's called a giggle. If you've ever seen the TV series Coupling, they have this thing called the giggle loop. And as they're talking about it, they're taking the beer glasses that they have, and they'll put one down upside down, and the next one goes right side up. So it's the bottom of the glass to the bottom of the glass. Then they turn one upside down. So now you got the tops on top of each other, and they're talking about the giggle loop. And it's always in a serious situation when you're standing there and it's a very solemn occasion, and all of a sudden you get the giggles, and you're holding it in, and you're holding it in, and you're holding it in. And meanwhile, they're showing these glasses getting stacked on top of each other. And in this particular episode, when they're learning about the giggle loop, they are at a funeral for one of their friends. Because if you've never seen Coupling, it's about 6 people. There's 3 guys, 3 girls, and some of them hook up. And very interesting characters from different walks of life that come together, and they're just a group of friends. It's kind of like the British version of Friends, but a little on the raunchier side. But one of them, her aunt had died, and so she was going to this family gathering, but she hadn't told them that she had broken up with the one of the guys in the group. And so she said, can you come as my boyfriend? They don't know that we've broken up. Please, can you do this? This is my great aunt's funeral, blah, 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 blah. So he agrees to go with her. Well, his girlfriend, who is another girl in the group, she says, well, I'm not having that. So she hooks up. So she goes to her ex, who's one of the guys in the group, and says, come with me. So they all pair up with each other, who is not the normal pair. And off they go to this funeral. And so they're standing there while the priest is doing his thing. And all of a sudden, one of them, the 3 guys are like standing there in a row, because they've all heard about the giggle loop. And they're standing there in a row, and they're like holding hands, and you can see their knuckles getting whiter and whiter as they're so hard trying to hold it all in and everything else. And all of a sudden, the girl whose aunt it was bursts out laughing in the middle of the And the guys are like, and they just sort of like frown at her, like, how dare she laugh? But yeah, that's the Giggle Loop. Very funny program. If you ever want to see a good British comedy, the coupling. Yeah, coupling. That's what it's called. It's a really cool program. Love it. I have it on DVD. And that was one of the when Brad was going through cancer, we learned the importance of laughter. Laughter is so important. It has such amazing health benefits as well. If you get the really good deep belly laughs going, it will it's an aerobic exercise for your internal organs when you get the real good belly laughs going. And you can laugh at nothing at all. As my accountability coach says, she says, laugh now, you'll get the joke later. Let's see where we're up to. Wonder is not always quiet or gentle. Sometimes it's loud, silly, and contagious. Absolutely. I hate serious situations. I always get I'm prone to the giggle loop. And I always try to break the tension with laughter, or find some funny way to break the tension, the seriousness of the situation, things like that. Some people like it, some people don't. It's just me. I'm sorry. That's who I am. Deal with it. But the other cool part about laughter is just that it's such a good stress reliever as well. When Brad was going through cancer, one of the things we laughed was, the importance of laughter. And we did it every opportunity we got. In fact, when we found out he was going to be surgery, and his surgery was he's having a lower anterior resectional, which meant that they had a zipper scar that went from his belly button down to his groin. And that was so they could get in there and get down to his into the lower intestines, where it turns into the rectum. So the rectum is about 12 inches long, and then you have the colon that goes up from that goes up from there all across around here and down into the lower intestine. And there's all these little squiggly bits in between. There you go. And they were going in there and they were removing the cancer, which was actually in his rectum, in that portion, that 12 inches. They ended up taking out 12 inches. He ended up with a 2-inch rectum, and then they took out 12 inches from there, along with 21 lymph nodes. So they could test to see if the cancer had gone into any of the lymph nodes, since it was in the wall of the rectum and colon. And so one of the things they said, and so we always thought that laughter was good medicine, so we were putting it to the test. And he was in hospital a little longer than he should be, but that was Brad. He didn't do anything by the book, because most people who had that surgery were out within a week, in 7 days. Brad was there for 21 days. But we made it fun. It was a hard time, so we relied on our love for each other and the banter that we had, so that we could get through these times. And the nurses loved our room. They loved the room, because Brad and I were always bantering backwards and forwards on different things. And they also really didn't have to do anything, because I kind of took over his care, completely under medical supervision. They would allow me to do what I was capable of doing, which was just about everything except changing the IV and giving him his medication. Everything else, once I figured out how to do it, I was doing it and recording numbers up on the whiteboard for them. And they would come in every hour, get the numbers off the board, and sign the sheet that they had been there that hour, and then go and go into the numbers in the system. Anything I wanted, I would walk up to the nurse's station, and they knew that I wouldn't come up there unless there was something, unless I needed something. And so they would drop what they were doing and go, "What do you need?" And I would tell them. And Brad had a window. He was in a semi-private room. There's nothing private about it except the curtain between the beds. That's it. All conversations are heard. That's the only privacy thing, is that you pull the curtain and you can't see the other person. That's it. But he was on the side closest to the window, and it had this deep windowsill. And so we had our own little medical station going there that had all of his ostomy supplies in there. We had the crocodile clips that go on the end of the IVs when they're disconnected. We had extra saline bags there, because the nurses didn't want to have to keep running to the room to put them up and all of that. We had our own little medical storage thing going there, which the nurses would quite often utilize if they, rather than running all the way around to the storage unit, to the storage room. So we had a great little setup there, and we were always laughing and bantering and going backwards and forwards on things. We did have one nurse that we didn't like at all, and who never came into the room. And Brad had been pressing the button because his IV had run out; it needed to be replaced. And after about an hour, I went up to the front desk. The nurse who had been assigned to Brad that day. Oh, and the nurses would kind of fight over who got to take care of Brad that day as well. But this particular nurse, we'd never had him before, and he comes in the morning to do his beginning of shift rounds, and we never saw him again. And Brad's IV ran out, and he's hitting the button, and they come on and say yes, and he goes, "Oh, my IV needs replacing." They're like, "Okay, we'll be there in a minute." They then pass that message on to the nurse who's looking after that patient for the day to get them to go do it. Brad pressed that button. We waited an hour. I said, I've had enough of this. I go out there. He's sitting on the computer playing solitaire. And he goes, "Oh, may I help you?" And I turn around and says, "Yes, my husband's IV ran out an hour ago. If you are not there in 1 minute, I'm going to change the bag on that." And I think I figured out how to do it after watching it so many times, and walked away. He was immediately out of there and in there. I says, "Right, now while he gets the IV all set up," I says, "Now while you're here, those bulbs, the drainage bulbs," I said, "they need emptying. So you can get that job done too." And he looked at me like, "Okay." So he goes and gets the container and empties the bulbs and all that sort of stuff. And I said, and then he goes to walk out. I said, "Excuse me, where are you going?" He goes, "Well, I've done everything." I said, "No, you haven't." I said, "The bulbs need to be emptied." He said, "I just emptied them." I says, "Yeah, you've left them so long." I said, "They have to be checked hourly, at least once an hour." I said, "You've left them so long that the fluid has backed up in his system." So now it was 30 minutes before I allowed him to finally leave the room. And it took 30 minutes for the body to get rid of all that excess fluid that had been backing up because the bulbs were full. And so the next day when the doctors were doing the rounds and stuff, I said to the nurse who accompanied them, I said, "Who do I talk to about a nurse that we had issues with?" She goes, "That would be me." She happened to be the matron. And so I explained to her what happened the day before. And I says, "Oh, and he came at the end of the shift and checked off every hour, signed off every hour on the sheet." I said, "We had to chase him to get him in here to get stuff done," and told her the whole story and everything else. And she says, "He will never be allowed to take care of your husband again while he is staying here." I said, "Thank you." So a few days later, Brad got a new roommate, and the guy got assigned to her son. Now, this guy was like 40 something, had disabilities and stuff. And I was Helen, she was Ellen. And between the two of us, and she ran her son's area like I ran Brad's area. And her son was also very, very forgetful. So a lot of times she would come in and go, "Oh, it's Dr. Da-da-da been in." And her son would go, "Nope, haven't seen him at all." And he'd be sitting in the thing reading the paper and have those little half glasses, and he'd look over and goes, "Nope, haven't seen him at all." And I turned around to her and I said, "He was here." I said, "He was here a couple of hours ago, and this is what he said." So, but this nurse got assigned to her son, and I said, "Let me tell you about him." I said, "Be very careful." I said, because blah, 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 and told her about the story about Brad. And so, yeah, she says, "That won't happen." And she was on him the entire day. If he was late for meds, she went and found him and told him to come and give him the meds. If he was late changing the IV, she was out there literally dragging him into the room to get stuff done. I said, "Anything that happens, make sure you note it and let the head of nursing know tomorrow when they do the round." She's like, "On it." So, but anyway, but we had a lot of fun. And Brad's colorectal surgeon was absolutely hilarious. He's heard probably just about every joke out there about being a colorectal surgeon, the songs, everything else, videos, all of that sort of, all the joke stuff that's out there about his profession. He has probably heard it all. But his favorite candy was Altoids raspberry sours. You can't get them anymore. I haven't seen them in years, and I loved those things. And so whenever he was on rounds, he'd come into Brad's room and they'll be sitting on the table, and he'd just open up the can, pull out two, because you need one for each side of the mouth. And so Brad would always make sure he had some, but we got to like them as well. And those were the only ones. got rid of the Altoid mints and just had the Altoid raspberry sours. Those were really good, but they don't make them anymore. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then what was the other thing that we did? Oh, the surgeon was hilarious. Brad had to go after his surgery and everything had been reversed. He had to have a checkup with the colorectal surgeon. And there's prep work you have to do. And it's not really something you can do yourself, so you have to have assistance. And we get in there so that Brad can be scoped. And I'm in the room with Brad. I'm at the head end talking to him. And the colorectal surgeon's doing the exam and all of that. And the colorectal surgeon and I are joking backwards and forwards. And Brad's sort of like, this is not the place to be joking while I've got my ass in the air. And so then we got back to the doctor's office and he says, we found a lump. We're going to have to do an autopsy, not an autopsy, what do you call those things? A biopsy on it, not an autopsy, a biopsy on this lump that we found in there. And I'm sort of like, was it about this far in and was it about this size? And he goes, yes. I said, that's probably my fault. And he looks at me and goes, why? I said, during prep work, we had an incident, just a little one. I hurt him a little bit. And he's like, okay. So when we went to have the biopsy done, the surgeon comes out. Now I am sitting by myself in the surgical waiting area. The place is packed. It's a big waiting room and it's packed. And there happens to be a seat next to me. And the colorectal surgeon saunters across there with his hands in his pockets, turns around, sits down, kicks his legs out straight in front of him, crosses his ankles, looks at me and goes, yep, it's all your fault. And he didn't say it quietly. And there's all these heads turn and look at me. And I just started laughing. And I said, so it was that. He says, yes, it actually hit the end of a staple. So the staple was actually out of alignment. So we got all that put back into place and everything's good. So he said, but we took a sample anyway, just in case. So, find laughter in everything. Everything. You can always find laughter in anything. When you've had, when somebody has passed, share the stories, share the memories. Yes, there is going to be laughter in there. Yes, it is okay to laugh. Oh my gosh, the number of people that says, oh, they're laughing over there. That's disrespectful to the person who has passed. I'm like, no, it's not. I said, they are reliving memories of that person and some of the fun times that they have had. And it's brightening up the day and helping everybody to relax a little. It's giving them some enjoyment in a serious situation. I said, it is perfectly fine. Yeah, somebody got annoyed at me about that. And I'm so like, no. I said, if you don't like it, you can always leave. I don't know if they did or not, but I walked away. I was done with it. What happens when you embrace your humor, even in ordinary situations? You share laughter with others, strengthening community and connection. You let go of self-consciousness and enjoy joy for its own sake. You allow laughter to become a source of resilience in your story. Oh, laughter is such a huge, huge thing. And when you get the chance to have a laugh, that's one of the things I was going to tell you. Because of his surgery, I wanted to help him recover with laughter. So at the house, we've got the entire series of Twilight Zone. Now, is it funny? Some of them actually are quite funny, some of the episodes, but this is the original Twilight, all in black and white. So we have the entire series of that, which is really cool to watch. But we also had the entire series of the original Kids Say the Darndest Things with Art Linkletter, with him. Oh my gosh, I haven't laughed so hard in I don't know how long, especially when you're somebody in the 21st century looking back at something that was done in the 20th century in the 1950s and 60s. Very different perspective on the questions that were asked. Some of the questions would still get that reaction today. Other ones, the answers were very humorous and everything else. It was awesome. And the other full DVD set we had was coupling. And we just watched those and they always got us laughing. Anything that could make us laugh, because we had to wake up when he was home, we had to make sure that his digestive system kept awake. And one way to do that was to get him to laugh, because it's an aerobic exercise for your internal organs. So remember that. Let's see how we carry forward. Create moments of intentional play and joy in daily life. Seek out the people, places, and stories that make you laugh. Remember that laughter is healing. It very definitely is. Laughter really is the best medicine out there. It gets your endorphins flowing, which help relieves stress. If you're getting those belly laughs going, you're giving your internal organs aerobic exercise. Plus, you feel good at the end of it. You feel good. You don't just sort of like stop laughing and go, oh, okay, we're finished laughing now. No more laughter. We're done. We've had our laughter period for the day. Thank you very much. Laughter is a medicine for heavy hearts. Honor laughter as one of life's purest forms of awe and wonder. I will put a timer on during the day, and I will flip through TikTok videos, reels. This is during this time when my timer is on. Reels, those short ones, especially the ones that have kids in them, that have dogs in them, have cats in them. They just get me, and especially the ones that are just sort of like quirky stuff. It gets me laughing, and it gets me laughing. That's how I get my laughter during the day. And other times I would just sit there and go, yeah, let's get some laughter going. And I have little prompts around the house that will help induce the laughter and things like that. I also have certain movies that I go and watch. Like if I'm watching, like I watched The Accountant last night, the first one, because I want to see the second one. So I had to remind myself what happened in the first one. And like tonight I'm thinking, we need to lighten it up a little bit. It was a action movie. We need to lighten it up. So tonight we may watch a comedy, or I may get out there and go, you know what? I'm just going to watch The Accountant too. On the legacy, the sound of your laughter, the stories that make you chuckle, and the moments you share joyfully with others will live on. These echoes of laughter become part of the legacy you leave behind. Oh, kids, that's the other one, the kids on videos as well. Those are hilarious too. You can get some really cool, fun ones out there. So go find something to help make you laugh. And one thing I have to be cautious of is that there's times that something on a program or a movie is just outright funny. It is something I have never seen before, completely unexpected, and I get going with those really good belly laughs, but I forget to breathe. And when I get into that state, I can't breathe. And Brad would recognize when I would get into that state, and all I could hear, and he would go, breathe, Helen, breathe, breathe, Helen, breathe. And now when I get myself in that state, I actually hear him in my ear going, breathe, breathe, Helen, breathe. So yeah, he's always around me, making sure I'm taking care of myself and everything else. But when I get that laughter going, where I get to the point where I can't breathe, and when I get to that point I can't breathe, I start going into this massive coughing fit. And in my ear, I've got Brad going, breathe, Helen, breathe. So yeah, if you're ever anywhere and you hear me laughing and then I start coughing, just tell me to breathe. Good. So here are your 4 reflection questions for tonight. Number 1, when was the last time you laughed so hard you forgot everything else? Those are the times I have to tell myself to breathe. Who are the people? Number 2, who are the people that bring the most laughter into your life? Number 3, how can you invite more humor and play into your everyday routine? And number 4, what role has laughter played in helping you through difficult times? I will tell you this. If I can't go through life without laughter. If I find that I'm getting too serious, I can feel the heaviness and the weightiness coming on me. And so I know that I have to go and laugh at something. I will put a movie on that's funny. I will get on the social media for the TikToks and the reels and all that have kids and animals and babies' laughter. Oh my gosh, there are these really cute montage videos of babies giggling. How can you not laugh or smile when you've got babies giggling? And there's this really cool, I don't know, this kid, it's not exactly, he must be in his first year, I would say, but he is talking, and he's sitting on this woman's lap, and I think they're just giving him like misting spray with water, and all of a sudden he goes, wow, and then he stops and gets all serious again, so they spray him again. Wow. I just can't stop. You gotta You have to laugh. There's certain things you just have to laugh at. I don't like the ones where people are getting hurt. Yes, I don't like the ones where people are getting hurt. But when you've got things like dogs doing silly things, what's one of my there's a couple where the dog will suddenly just like appear in the doorway or something like that, where the dogs are playing. They want to play with you. They're trying to entice you to play. They can be quite funny. They might be laying on their brother or sister, which is a cat. It's just, and it's babies with dogs and cats too. Those are really, really cute, and some of them are really funny. So find those times to laugh. If you need to, schedule it in your calendar to sit there and go through the social media and the reels and the TikToks and all that sort of stuff. Bypass if it's serious, swipe through. Find the ones with the animals and the babies and the kids. Those are usually the pretty good ones. And so in closing tonight, wonder lives in laughter. Every giggle, snort, or belly laugh is proof that joy is possible, even in hard times. Let laughter remind you of the light that's always here. And with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific, and I promise to be on time, unless there's an emergency or it's raining. And I might go outside quickly and dance in the rain. Who knows? I want it to rain. But I think it's more windy out there than it is raining. Anyway, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening.